20 years after the international arrest warrant for former Bosnian Serb President Radovan Karadzic was issued, the International War Crimes Tribunal for Yugoslavia will finally hand down its verdict on him this month. At a recent Black Coffee Morning event at our London offices, a panel of experts discussed the ICTY and its efficacy.
It was the first international criminal tribunal for 50 years after Nuremberg and Tokyo, and it was created really rather on the hoof. It has jurisdiction over 4 crimes. It has delivered justice up to a point in relation to a relatively small number of individuals. If you spend time in the region, they will tell you that the process has been inadequate. It has delivered justice too thinly in relation to too few people. It's not done away with impunity, and there's been no ownership by communities in Bosnia and Serbia and Croatia of its product. That said, would we be better off if the ICTY had never been created? I think the answer to that is no. It's another step on the long, painful, slow road to international criminal justice.
Some argue that there was a great deal of hypocrisy in the original creation of the tribunal, and that some powers such as Britain and France didn't want it to function properly.
They were not convinced by the need for an international criminal tribunal. It was set up really as a sop to Western public opinion that was outraged by the killings, and yet the West was doing nothing to stop the killing in Bosnia. So when it was set up in 1993, it was a sop to public opinion. But the French and British were against it because they thought that it would make it harder to bring a peace deal. They saw as Milosevic being the route to a peace deal. If you went after Milosevic and his underlings, then he would be less likely to sign a peace deal. It turned out they were wrong. That the territorial ambitions for Greater Serbia completely outweighed any concerns that Milosevic may have had about the court, and it was that initial hostility to a institution they thought it would make it harder to make a peace deal that led them to try and strangle it at birth and cut it off from funds.
With the International Criminal Court marking its 10th anniversary in 2008, there has been criticism about it failing to provide justice for some victims of international crimes. Some believe that the ICTY could serve as a model for justice.
Well, the ICTY was a stepping stone between Nuremberg and the creation of the International Criminal Court. I think if the ICTY and ICTR had not been established, we would not have an International Criminal Court. We've got an International Criminal Court. It is sort of delivering justice in a small number of cases, mostly African related cases, and I think that again raises a serious issue about the selectivity of the international justice system, the sense, which actually goes back to Nuremberg and Tokyo, that international justice is in some way tainted by the claim that it is victor's justice. And that claim has tainted the ICTY, and to an extent, but not quite the same level, it taints the ICC. So I think the great challenge that we have is to make sure the international justice system is delivered far and wide, and not selectively, that it does not become an instrument of the powerful and the successful, but that it holds to account anyone who has perpetrated an international crime, irrespective of nationality or place. That is a distant goal at this point, but as I think I've made clear in the course of this event, the delivery of international justice is a long-term project, and we are but at the first stages of that project.
It was a beneficiary of some very particular circumstances. It came out of a geopolitical time in the aftermath of the Cold War, where Russia was prepared to go along with such experiments. It was the closest that Russia ever came to the West, and since then it has been adrift away. So it's very difficult to recreate that situation in the Security Council that allowed it to be brought into being. Also, there were 64,000, nearly 65,000 NATO-led troops on the ground, a huge police force with which to carry out arrests. Again, that's a set of circumstances that's very difficult to reproduce. And so in a way, it was an anomaly, but it's an anomaly that we have to somehow recreate, because what's become clear since the gains in terms of the enforcement of international justice that the ICTY represents have been since unraveling in Syria, in Iraq, and then we have seen the costs of that unraveling. And so no matter what the difficulties and costs of creating that form of international justice, an effective form of international justice, the costs of not doing it are far greater.